Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and this is my husband Drew. And on this channel we talk about life and relationships after leaving the church and do commentary on the goings-on in evangelical Christianity. Today we're doing something that should be a little bit more fun and lighthearted than some of the videos we've done recently.
Yeah.
We're talking about Todd Friel. We haven't talked about him in a minute, but he's an apologist and a radio show host of this show called Wretched. It's a conservative Christian radio show.
Mm-hmm.
We've done a video on him before, which it was so long ago now, I honestly can't remember exactly what it was he was talking about in that video. I feel like it was an apologetics thing.
Yeah, cringe was in the title and in the video.
This video that we're going to respond to today, I actually just kind of stumbled upon. I just randomly clicked on it and I was like, flabbergasted by it. It's called Warning Christians, This Growing Trend is Destroying
Families.
So we talk a lot on our channel about approaching videos with compassion. In this one, we're going to be a little bit harsher than I think we normally are. And the reason for that is because Todd Friel is a multimillionaire.
Yeah, he's a little bit richer than our usual people we're responding to.
He's not just a couple that happens to have a YouTube channel.
Right.
The guy has an entire apologetics radio show empire, and like I said, is very, very wealthy.
Right.
So he's kind of like top dog in the tier of Christian, conservative Christians.
Yeah.
So we feel like it is appropriate to take a little bit of a harsher and kind of poke fun at him at times. I think that approach is okay for people like this.
Yeah, he actually shares his ministry or at least I should say his ministry is connected under the same umbrella as Ray Comfort's and Kirk Cameron's. So we're talking about a lot of money and a lot of complete and utter garbage.
Yeah. And I think it'll be pretty clear in the video just how much money he has.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into this.
Young men are either waiting to get married into their 30s or they're just not seeking a spouse at all. This is not good on at least two levels. Societally, family is the bedrock. It is the glue that holds everything together. Without families, a mom and a dad and kids, in a till death do us part covenantal relationship, you've got a country that is going to be a disaster.
It is a
disaster. Okay, I have to say, the editor really flexing that new transition pack that he just downloaded from a how to do epic transitions how-to YouTube video.
It's so annoying to me. It's too much. You can tell that it's a very old school media way of doing YouTube because nobody does that anymore.
Yeah, those epic transitions are either on way overproduced videos that people don't like, or they're on videos that are doing that stuff ironically.
Yeah.
This is not either one of those things.
I also want to point out that he makes this claim that what keeps society together is the family. A husband and wife, one man, one woman, with children. That's the bedrock of society, and without it, it would crumble. Which source for that?
I mean, if you're talking about a civilization that has high infant mortality rates, then yes, that makes perfect sense. But infant mortality rates are pretty low now. The overwhelmingly vast majority of people who are born make it to adulthood. And so we don't really need to just hunker down and make women breeding factories in order to make sure that we replace the population.
Right.
We have overpopulation problems. So I think it's a lot more debatable these days than it was in the Roman Empire when his source documents were written.
Yeah.
Disaster. However, there's another level that should concern us regarding young men not just waiting to get married, but giving up on dating. If you don't date/court, chances are really good you're not going to get married. What's the problem? It robs God of glory.
You know what really robs God of glory, I think? Having an entire grand piano in your background just as a prop next to your multi-panel widescreen TV that just as a graphic that you made in
That you could
in PowerPoint?
You could just put that in like post and editing?
Yeah, this is obviously a 6-figure studio at least, right? And this is the kind of stuff they're making with it. You know what robs God of glory? You not giving more money to this ministry.
Well, it's like, I don't understand the need for such a large studio. And we'll see this more in the video. He walks the entire perimeter.
Well, you can't walk around if it's not big enough to walk around.
I mean, his studio looks like it's bigger than our house, or almost the size of our house.
Yeah.
Square footage.
Yeah, I would say so.
That's right. That's what Paul was talking about in Ephesians when he defined what marriage is. It's a bit of a mystery. Here's the picture. I'll explain the puzzle. Sir, you play the role of Jesus. Madam, you play the role of the church. The world watches you. They want to know about what makes you different, and they end up getting saved. Therefore, when we play our roles as Jesus and the church, God gets much glory. When we're not getting married at all, it robs him of that glory. Let's see if we can figure.
Okay, I'm trying to understand his point here. So he's saying that people need to get married because it symbolizes the relationship that God has with his church, with his people. And if you're not getting married, then people won't be able to see that symbol anymore, or that symbol is taken away from people. But
and they're less likely to.
Are we just assuming that people are seeing a married couple and God in the church just immediately pops into their head?
Yeah, I do wonder that. I mean, I feel like a much more direct way to share the gospel of Jesus with people is to share the gospel of Jesus with people. Also, I mean, wasn't the Apostle Paul who wrote about all this stuff apparently like single? And one of his main points was, I'm single because it helps me to focus on just spreading the word of Jesus Christ. And I wish that you could all be like me. But for those of you who are too morally weak and, you know, might succumb to sexual immorality, if you're single, then you should go ahead and get married if you have to.
Yeah.
That's how I understand the Bible. I've interviewed actual scholars who are Christians, by the way, who are like, yeah, that's what the Apostle Paul seemed to be saying. So the idea that marriage is actually supposed to help you evangelize, you know that you have a lot more freedom and flexibility to do stuff like spread the gospel if you're not
if you
married,
don't have like an entire family that you're trying to take care of and they occupy a large part of your time.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the assumption that's built in here is that people will see a married couple and interpret that to be representative of God and his church. I feel like that's a huge assumption on his part.
I mean, people got married before and outside of Christian contexts. So, I mean, was it showing God's love, Christ's love, when Roman men were getting married before Jesus ever even existed? I guess, according to this.
I don't know, I guess.
Figure out why this is happening. What went wrong here, and what might we do as the church to help young men not put off dating, but to run to the altar? From an article in Reddit, a young man wrote, "The constant feeling of wanting affection all stems from social media."
I just want to point out really quickly that posts on Reddit are not articles written by journalists or writers. They're user-generated content, not articles. But anyway.
I like how he has this TV that has his little PowerPoint on it, but then they just edit in the PowerPoint presentation to the video. I don't understand what the point of the TV is, other than to show, like, we have so much money that we can have multiple TVs in our studio.
I have a pretty good guess, but I'll get into it later in the video. So Todd Friel is very skilled in making us cringe with his stuff. I thought we could get back at him a little bit, do something that makes him cringe. What do you say?
Let's talk about the sponsor of today's video, Womanizer. I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but Womanizer is actually the original inventor of suction toys. and they offer a wide variety of toys at all price points. All of their toys feature patented pleasure air technology that will easily help you achieve the big O. Allow me to briefly talk about the Womanizer Next, which is basically the Bentley of vibrators. This toy features their improved pleasure air technology called the Pleasure Air 3D. It has 3 different pulse depth levels and 14 intensity levels. One of my favorite features of this toy is that it has a smart silence feature, so whenever the toy is not in contact with your skin, it actually turns off, which is super nice whenever you're trying to be very quiet and discreet. This toy also has an afterglow button, which is a feature that I haven't seen in any other vibrator. This button is intended for use after climax, and it will turn the toy back to its lowest intensity level. But if you're looking for a toy that's travel friendly, then I highly recommend the Liberty 2. Just like the Womanizer Next, it features their patented pleasure air technology, but it's a lot more compact, which is perfect for travel. The Liberty 2 also features a magnetic travel cover so you can keep your toy clean and hygienic while you're traveling, and it also features a travel lock, so you don't have to worry about your toy accidentally vibrating in your bag while you're going through security. Okay, so here's the deal. If you use my code Taylor20, you can receive 20% off their entire website. The best part is this code also works on sale items, so you can really save a lot of money. Check my link in the description box below to save on your next toy. Thank you so much, Womanizer. Now back to the video.
I came to the realization that I'm doing nothing but wasting my time by talking to girls that only want to talk on Instagram but wouldn't even pick up the phone for a call, let alone meet up. It's a waste of time. What are the 2 issues that jumped out to me? Number 1, Instagram. This is basically how you check out the opposite sex. And both men and women are doing this as if the opposite gender are merely cattle that we can buy at the auction block. Instagram, it ain't helping young people to get married.
I like how he's focusing on Instagram because that's the only form of social media other than Facebook that he's aware of.
Reddit. He reads articles on Reddit.
Articles on Reddit. It shows you how much he knows about Reddit.
Yeah. I do think that there is a point here that people do see other people as commodities or objects in part because of social media, the way that we look at other people through social media. That's not an invalid point. But when he said, viewing people as cattle, I couldn't help but think, you know that the Judeo-Christian way of viewing marriage as a part of a patriarchal household where the male is not just the head of the home, but is the owner of everything in the home. I really don't think that it's just Instagram that might be getting even Christian people to see others as a commodity, specifically women as a commodity and as property.
Right.
It's traditional culture because women literally were viewed as something to be owned in traditional culture. They had to be given by their fathers.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in the Old Testament, if a married woman is raped by someone that's not her husband, then the rapist has to pay the husband of the woman because she's seen as property. This person basically stole from the husband.
Yeah.
It's not the woman that gets anything, because it doesn't matter. She's just property.
Well, she can't own something as a piece of property.
Right.
Furthermore, they're growing discouraged, and they seem to think, rather than dating a goyle, wasting my time on the Instagram machine, I've got hobbies to do. That should tell us.
Rather than dating a goyle.
I would never date a gargoyle. Is that what he said?
Goyle.
I personally wouldn't.
So a conundrum I'm having is clearly this video is targeted to people that would be using Instagram to date. So this is targeted to younger people that are in their 20s and maybe early 30s.
Yeah, that's what they're hoping for.
But using the term goyle, that's not going to connect with anyone that's younger. And also, I'm pretty sure that everybody that watches this channel is over 60 at least.
Yeah. I mean, I've never actually seen the word goyle in an article on Reddit before, so that doesn't connect for me.
Something. If a young man is willing to give up on goyles, it means he likes something a lot more. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that love of hobbies needs to diminish, but love of women and getting married needs to increase. Let's learn more, shall we? From Reddit. That's right, I said it. One fellow responded, I realized the return on his...
The editing and everything, his voice, the whooshing, the walking around the room, it's really overstimulating for me.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
His investment wasn't there. I got a lot more enjoyment from working out, hanging out with friends, and just being alone. When these very fine activities are superseding the desire to get married in a one-flesh relationship, something is horribly off, and we can't just point our fingers at these Gen Zers and tisk them. We might have some responsibility in this. More responses.
I mean, maybe that guy maybe relationships aren't for him. Maybe he just really does enjoy doing hobbies and being on his own to having a partner.
Possibly,
why is that a problem?
That's the Apostle Paul. He had a hobby. We're still talking about it today.
Yeah.
I am glad that it doesn't seem that he's immediately taking this to a young people are dumb or kind of a men going their own way type place. At least we're avoiding that. We'll see if what he gets into is much better, though.
I don't know if it's just the free apps or if it's just the inevitable outcome of trying to digitize and commodify human connection, but all dating apps seem to make people just seem disposable, particularly yourself. Don't need to look far for sociological studies that indicate we have a generation that is very depressed. I know there are more contributing factors. A lot of them have to do with the church and family, but is it possible that dating apps are contributing to depression? Individuals feel commodified. They feel like they're not...
I like how he says that you don't have to look far for sociological studies, but then he doesn't reference any of the sociological studies.
Yeah.
Instead, he backs this all up with three Reddit posts.
Yeah.
Why not talk about the data? Why? Because
it's not as entertaining.
Yeah, narratives sell more.
Yeah.
Narratives sell better than data does.
Right. Again, he's pointing out something that I do think is real, that people feel commodified, that dating apps are inferior to maybe a way it used to be done. I personally do think that the world would be better off if we met in person rather than on apps. Apps are a way for big companies to make money off of people having normal human relationships. So that is messed up. I'm just waiting to see how he pitches the idea that Jesus is the solution to too many apps and not maybe the apps are the problem, so no apps is the solution.
Yeah. I would actually make the argument, and obviously I don't have any data to back this up, but I would lean more towards dating apps are helpful for certain people, but maybe not for all people.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I know of couples that have met through dating apps who wouldn't have met otherwise.
Yeah.
And I know of people who have been on dating apps for years and haven't met anybody and have only had bad experiences.
Yeah.
And I think some people enjoy it more and others do feel like they're commodified. So I think it just depends on the person. I'm not to the point where I think that dating apps need to be replaced. I think that there is a place for them, but I do agree with you in the sense that I think there needs to be other avenues for people to meet different people that isn't restricted to just online, because that doesn't work for everybody.
Right. Yeah, good points.
Nothing but a product, because they know as they're doing this, somebody is doing that to them. And just looking at them and assessing them visually and quickly. And if you don't write the cool words, have a clever way of presenting yourself, well, then you just get passed over. That does not breed a very healthy image of oneself, shall we say. So why is it that...
This guy would have the best Tinder profile, though. Like, right?
He totally would.
He would have 18 different photos with completely different backgrounds. And then at the end, in the 19th photo, he's like, this was all in the same room. This is all in one room. This is all shot in one continuous shot.
I've never had a dating app, so I don't really know what they're like exactly, but I know on some, there's an area where it asks a question and you can leave a voice note.
Oh, yes. Oh,
I'm just imagining his voice.
I could take you on a very pleasant date, given that you are a Goyle.
But I am planning on getting married, so if you're not interested in that, then leave.
Yeah.
Fellows, who I presume are healthy young men, are not racing to marriage so they can enjoy that intimate act. One word. Porn. It's a scourge on our...
We've been saying that for like 2 weeks.
We have. Okay, we've both watched this once, really, really briefly. I don't think I even watched the whole thing, and we've been saying, but porn. like every day, like multiple times a day.
Porn.
Porn.
Did he also just say that the motivating factor for getting married is to have sex?
Yeah. That's an implication.
Said.
Like, you're not going to want to get married as a man if you can look at porn.
Culture, it has infiltrated the church at staggering levels, including the pastors. Young men are now being introduced to porn, and I think the average age now is 10. Yikes, they're seeing these images. They get hooked like a bass in Minnesota, and they cannot get out of porn, but they are finding their fulfillment in pixels and not with a spouse. Pornography.
I mean, I think that is a good point, because obviously kids getting introduced to porn at 10 years old, that is
it's messed
a
up.
problem. And I do think that porn, especially how mainstream porn is done, it does give a lot of people unrealistic expectations for what sex is.
It's really dehumanizing of women a lot of the time.
It's very dehumanizing. A lot of it isn't, it's obviously done in a way that isn't for the pleasure or mutual pleasure of both the man and the woman involved.
Yeah.
It's solely about the man.
Yeah.
So I think that is a good point, but I think a better argument for why we need to change how porn is produced is what I just said, because it gives unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
Not because it replaces marriage.
Yeah. I also think that if men are getting married because they have the goal of sex, then that's probably not going to work out very well for the women involved, right?
Yeah.
I think that if a man is trying to get married for the sake of sex, he's probably going to choose a partner that he's not going to be very good for, that is not probably going to be the best for him. If you're able to have sex in a healthy way or have a sexual outlet or something so that you're not solely fixated on meeting this need that you have, I think you're more likely to choose a partner or get with a partner that's going to work well for you. Can you abuse things like porn or hookups or whatever? Yeah, you absolutely can. But I don't really think it's black and white. You either get married or you're addicted to porn from the time you're 10 years old. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, I feel like the point he's trying to make is that men are going to be fixated on sex. But if they're fixated on sex and porn, that's the wrong thing. But it's okay to be fixated on sex and marriage. It's placing emphasis on the wrong thing still.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's acting as though people are motivated to get married, or people, being men, are motivated to get married because of sex. And it's like, you should want to get married because you want a partner, you want to have that type of committed relationship, and you genuinely enjoy being around that person. Sex to the side, you know, that is a good reason to get married.
Yeah.
I don't think you should just get married because, like, you really want to have sex and you can't, because you're a Christian and you have to wait until you're married.
Is probably the number one email that we receive here at Wretched. Simply assessing why young men aren't getting married, while being somewhat helpful, doesn't really offer a solution. So what might be a cure to the current dilemma that so many young men face of just becoming kind of ho-hum about getting married? Well, I think I got me an idea. It seems to me that we need to go about the business of helping them see marriage as being something better, intimacy with a human being as something better, and provide a system for them to lessen their odds of getting burned. What might that system be? Well, because the Bible doesn't speak explicitly about how to go about the business of getting married. You see arranged marriages. You see where it's, no, I just like that girl and I'm going to get married marriages. But we never see this is how you're supposed to do it. Maybe, just maybe, I know this sounds old-fashioned because it is, but remember, not everybody who is dead was dumb. Rather than dating and scrolling and looking and going out, we return to a little something called courting.
Oh, wow.
All right. Yeah, that's his grand solution. Is that how rooted in, I mean, like he was saying, the Bible doesn't explicitly say the way that you need to date. So he says we need to court, but he doesn't really try to root that in the Bible exactly, right?
No, because he was saying in the Bible we see examples of arranged marriage, and we also see examples of people getting married just because they like one another.
Yeah.
So he doesn't root that in the Bible. I also think it's interesting that he doesn't really go into how courting is done. There's no practical advice in there. He just says, this is all a problem. My solution? Courting. I'm not going to tell you how to court, but that's my solution.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to being a signal to the audience that, hey, this old-fashioned thing that you probably have a bias toward, that's the solution to the world's problems, rather than actually spelling out the problem and the solution to it.
Well, and why bother going into how is courting done when your audience is all 60 and up and probably already married?
Yeah, or widowed, realistically.
Yeah. But I really think here it's a false dichotomy, because he's saying right now in society we have this problem that people aren't getting married as young as they used to be, that dating apps are making people feel commodified, men have less of an interest in marriage, and it's either that or it's courting.
Yeah.
Like, there's no in between there.
Right.
It's this extreme, or, well, I guess what he's calling extreme, I don't really think is extreme. I don't think it's a problem that people are getting married older.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good thing, you know? I
mean, older than 16 to 21 or something. Yeah, I'd probably agree.
People getting married in their 30s, that's an appropriate age, I think. But yeah, it's not this extreme or this other extreme, you know? There's room in the middle there for solutions that could work better. And it's important that we talk about what courting is.
Yeah.
Because courting is usually heavily involves the parents.
Yeah, it's like a semi-arranged thing.
It's kind of an arranged. The parents have to agree to it. Mm-hmm. You can't really initiate something like that without parents' consent.
Yeah.
And it's usually the boy goes to the girl's father and asks if he can date her, which is kind of commodifying in itself, right?
It's stewardship of property.
Yeah. And they can't be alone together ever. They always have to have a chaperone to everything. It's in a pretty extreme way of going about dating.
I think if he wants a solution to people not getting married or not being married, then we might need to look at sociological studies, one of which says that the proximity to evangelical culture is actually a predictor of divorce.
Yeah.
I believe that I'm quoting that closely enough to be right. I wonder what his response to that would be. Would he be like, oh, we don't need to trust that science, that's biased, or they simply didn't understand the true gospel, those weren't true Christians that were, I don't know.
I think he would probably say that, well, that's just Satan attacking the evangelical church because he knows that they're doing something good in the world.
No, what he would say is, but that's Satan attacking the...
So it's still bothering me how huge his studio is. There's obviously a lot of money that went into that.
Right.
A lot of money. I can't imagine. I don't know if this is in his house, if it's just office space that he rents. I imagine the rent on that can't be that cheap for how big it is, and all of the equipment. I mean, you'd have to have lighting and multiple parts of that studio in order for him to walk around it like that.
He also had multiple cameras, which would require multiple people on the payroll being cameras, like being cameramen. So we're talking about a really high hourly rate for this.
Yeah. That's insane. And their YouTube channel isn't small. It's medium-sized. Let me see how many views this video got. 20,000. Okay, so not bad. But that is a lot of production costs to go into something that's, like, usually that level of production costs are for channels that are huge.
Yeah. I mean, this is like The Tonight Show or something.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but it seems that medium to relatively small Christian channels often have insane production budgets, even though their views aren't that great.
Yeah. I would guess that the ministry behind this, the company calling itself a ministry, owns the building. So first of all, that's a little bit of cost off the hourly rate, just a lot of cost up front. But I also have a little bit of insight into how some of these ministries run, given that I worked out of a building that used to be a production studio for a pro-life ministry. So the company that I was working for moved into a place that had what was basically a much larger warehouse than they were currently working with. When they moved in there, they realized that while it was marketed as a warehouse space, it was actually a warehouse that was turned into a production studio. So we're talking about massive square footage that was soundproofed all the way around. Now, if any of you guys have done production stuff, you realize that soundproofing materials are, between the absolute lowest end is like $60 per square foot. And we're talking about like over 10,000 square feet. Completely soundproofed. And that's just the soundproofing. There's also a bunch of cameras. There was a over $20,000 soundproof booth that the pro-life ministry head guy could take secret phone calls in with government officials like senators. They had rooms that were just for workshopping very specific things that they could have done in other rooms. Basically, there was a lot of unnecessary expense just baked into every single room in that place. And the number of people that was running the ministry was, I think, 6. And it was a family. So we're talking about 2 parents and like 4 kids that were running this whole thing. Multi-million-dollar ministry. The reason why they had such ridiculous trappings for their production was that they were receiving tons of donations, just ridiculous amounts of donations.
So they had to put it somewhere.
They had to put it somewhere, or else it would basically be them personally pocketing the money, which looks like fraud. Now, they weren't using this money in a way that was useful, just like this set does not make his videos better. They could use
that money to feed the homeless or something that's a little bit more productive. Why put the money into just useless props? Yeah.
So my theory for this is that the Wretched studio looks like that because they have so much money coming in from donations, they have to put it somewhere. If you notice that the Wretched sign, let me see if I can...
I hate the name Wretched, by the way. I always want to say wretched. Like saying wretched for some reason sounds wrong to me. It just doesn't roll off the tongue very well.
So if you look at that Wretched sign, Wretched radio sign behind him, that That is a custom-made piece with LED lighting and everything. It's this big
I can't
metal...
imagine how much that would cost.
Right, and
that had to cost several, like $10,000 at least.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different pieces that are pretty pricey in there. I wonder if those stairs go anywhere, or if they're just a part of the set.
I don't think, I can't tell. It looks like there's a light there, but I don't know if it could go up behind the light.
Yeah.
I also just now realized that they have lighting on the ceiling.
Yeah. Well, because he needs to be lit so that we can walk around. All this to say, I feel like Wretched Radio's YouTube channel is an excellent example of how overly inflated, bloated these Christian ministries are. They make ridiculously easy content that, yes, is very highly produced and heavily rehearsed, but of very little value, is not actually adding anything new. It's just regurgitating the same thing, but it's done with all of this production. And for some reason, this satisfies their viewer base enough to keep them donating to people who obviously don't need it.
I feel that all this money could be put to so much better use. This could actually be going to some other charity or homeless people or just people in their church. It could go to so many other things. And I have a theory for why he walks around the room.
Yeah.
I think he has to for tax purposes. Because he has to justify
oh my God, you're right.
that he uses the entire thing as studio space. Because in our taxes, we can write off parts of our house
that we use for filming.
For work. Yeah. So I think he has to in order to justify it.
You got to write off the whole room.
If you're just using a corner of the room, and let's be real, he could use less than 25% of the space for what he needs to do. Easily.
Even the Daily Wire doesn't use this much space. Not even close.
But he has to walk around it to justify it.
That's, I would guess that the ministry probably has had a conversation about that.
Yeah. I find it all so cringe and just like it's very overstimulating for me. The walking around and the whooshing and the talking and the different screens and everything everywhere. It's so overproduced that it's like making it worse.
Yeah.
Like it's not making it better. It's making it worse.
Right. If the people at this ministry were to hear these points about, oh, you could be using your money better to do this and this and this to help people not suffer here on earth, what do you think their response would be? How would they justify this?
They would probably justify it as we're reaching more people by having our stuff online.
And why is it
saving
important?
More souls?
Exactly. Yeah. I think you can get away with a lot if you say that, hey, behind this secret hidden door that no one can open, there's a grand prize which reveals me to be a noble warrior in service of truth and justice.
But the thing is, probably very few people who aren't already Christians are watching this. I can't imagine it has to be mostly people that already believe in everything he's saying.
Hey, it got us. All I'm saying, got us to watch. To that bit, I'm sure that Todd Friel would say, you see, I've planted a seed that may grow into salvation for you two apostates.
Well, you know what I'm not going to watch tonight? Porn. Hey guys, don't forget to check out the link in the description box below and use my code Taylor20 to get 20% off your entire purchase at womanizer.com. As a reminder, this code does work on sale items. Thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to my patrons who help make these videos possible. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my Instagram is Taylor_the_antibot. And if you'd like to consider supporting this channel financially, a link to my Patreon will be down in the description, and we'll see you on the next one. Say bye!